Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, honorable members, in the interest, we repeat a crucial message that in the interest of safety for all present in the chamber, please keep your masks on and sit in your designated area. We also request members to sign the attendance register. The only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to the Deputy President. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question on. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. Please switch off your mics. Just check it. I know often we keep it on unwittingly. Let's switch it off, please. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by presiding officer. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness obviously has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty in the House will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all supplementary questions have been answered, meaning the 4 each time, by the Deputy President, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. The first question has been asked by Honorable NWA Mazoni. Honorable Deputy President, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and good afternoon to yourself and the honorable members. The first question, the response to the first question, Deputy Speaker and honorable members, as detailed by the Minister of Finance during the address on the medium-term budget policy statement, spending on government programs has exceeded annual revenues for more than a decade now. The persistent gaps between spending and government revenue requires difficult decisions about the structure, the effectiveness and affordability of certain programs in government. Like in many other countries, the current economic situation facing our country is not a unique one. In actual fact, Deputy Speaker, it has further been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which all of us are aware of. This dictates that government should repurpose and reprioritize the 2021 spending plans that were initially tabled in the 2020 budget. We must admit that our overall reality, Honorable Deputy Speaker, is that we are in an environment of shrinking resources that puts a strain on the national fiscus. That is why, in pursuit of our developmental objectives, we should accept that certain trade-offs will be made. To this end, Deputy Speaker, the National Treasury has been reviewing government's spending in order to improve efficiency, by, among other things, focusing on addressing overlapping responsibilities and mandates that leads to duplication of work, as well as ensuring that government does not overpay for services sourced from private sector contractors and suppliers. Even in the face of such challenges, Deputy Speaker, we must not despair, but should sharpen our conversation on that which will contribute to empowerment of our ordinary people that we represent. We must focus on job creation and ensuring that none of our people are subjected to hunger and extreme poverty. The Minister of Finance has indicated that as we look into improving the state of our finances, high-level policy discussion must be held, among others, on measures to strengthen the social protection system for the most vulnerable in our society. On the matter of government funding of the South African Airways, we must clarify upfront that the delivery of social and other services and investing in the country's state-owned enterprises as crucial drivers for development should not be perceived and be seen as mutually exclusive. In the contrary, funding of SAA should be understood in line with preserving strategic and catalytic state instruments for transformation, for growth, for development, and for service delivery and employment creation. When Cabinet approved the support of 10.5 billion rand allocation to SAA, we did appreciate the state of our finances. As government, we considered obligations of the state, especially if the airline were to be liquidated. We understood that this could be achieved through the reprioritization in budget allocations, and that departments will have to adjust spending priorities and programs to take into account the revised baselines allocation over the next 3 years. In doing so, we'll minimize adverse impact that the reprioritization may have on the delivery of social and other services. Even as we reprioritize the budget, the consolidated expenditure over the next 3 years shows that there has been no negative decrease on education, on health, on community development and social development. This further will be enhanced by the one plan under the district development model, which in our view, Deputy Speaker, presents a paradigm shift in the provision and management of basic socio-economic services. The district model will resolve the fragmented approach to development, which tends to result in poor governance and resource wastage. This plan is also unambiguous on the empowerment of citizens and communities to access socio-economic rights like water, sanitation, healthcare, education, and security. These rights, Deputy Speaker, summarized in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, are non-negotiable in bringing government closer to the people and in driving localized growth and development. For our government, Deputy Speaker, This is a viable, sustainable mechanism to build socially cohesive societies that are capacitated to drive impactful programs and implement social compacts between the private sector, civil society, and municipalities. We wish to assure South Africans, Honourable Speaker, that as part of navigating our way through these trying times, government has initiated measures to mitigate the negative impact of the reprioritization of funds on local government to ensure that access to services is not severely impacted. Some of these include the enactment of the Municipal Fiscal Powers and Functions Amendment Bill, which will provide an unambiguous, fair and consistent basis for municipalities to boost their revenues, for recovering development costs, for all land development projects within their spaces. Our approach is citizen-centric and is about entrenching a coordinated developmental ecosystem of competencies, resources, capabilities, and talents. Ultimately, we are about making today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today. Once the amendment bill has been enacted, the National Treasury will develop implementation guidelines and regulations as well as capacity building initiatives to ensure that municipalities maximize their ability to levy development charges in the most efficient and effective manner. In addition, as announced by the President in 2019, the Infrastructure Fund, Honourable Deputy Speaker, which is being managed by the Development Bank of South Africa, continues to complement government's efforts through catalyzing private sector investment into public infrastructure. Through this fund, there is capacity enhancement of municipalities to deliver on water, on energy, and social infrastructure projects in a very programmatic manner. Further complementing these efforts is the Investment and Infrastructure Office in the Presidency, which contributes to local government stability and consistency in the planning, investment, implementation, and maintenance of infrastructure in the short, medium, and long term. The work of this office is also contributing to re-establishing technical and financial engineering capacity, which we have seen being reduced within the state over a period of time. Honourable members, will therefore call upon all of us to join hands and work together to improve our fortunes and the fortunes of our people and support government's efforts of turning around the performance of our state-owned enterprises to the better. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Mazoni.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Deputy President. Good afternoon to you, sir. Deputy President, the answer that you've given to the question today is not dissimilar to one that I heard in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now 2020. In my tenure as the Shadow Minister of Public Enterprises, SAA went through no less than 13 turnaround strategies, none of which worked. So please understand when I say I have absolutely no belief that this airline has any capacity, regardless of how much money you pump into it, to turn itself around. It is defunct, it is archaic in its structure, and you should do South Africa the favour. You ask us to continuously hold hands. Well, let me tell you, social cohesion happens when society trusts government. And society cannot trust government because our government has been proved to be more worried about looking after tenders and people who get the tenders and putting money into failing state-owned entities that we proved over and over again collapsed because of state capture, instead of giving money to basic infrastructure projects, which is our fundamental duty. So my question, Deputy President, is this. It's been proven in court that Dudu Myeni was a delinquent director of SAA. It is beyond doubt that due to the actions of Dudu Myeni and the ex-President Jacob Zuma, we now found ourselves in a position where yet again South Africa is going to be pumping 16 billion rand into SAA. Will you join hands with the South African people and help Judge Zondo by ensuring that Cabinet also lays criminal charges against Dudu Myeni and ex-President Jacob Zuma for corruption, of state capture corruption?
Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Honorable Mazoni. Well, I share the sentiments that you're raising. The damage that has happened to SAA over time due to mismanagement and all the malfeasance that happened over time. And that we've subjected it to our institutions that are looking at fraud, corruption, and as we are speaking, there are cases that are before these institutions that are about mismanagement of funds in those institutions and some wrongdoings. So we would like to encourage our citizens, our people to report some of the things that they know that went wrong into SAA. But we think this time we want to turn the situation around by firstly find an equity partner. We thought that to run this airline as government alone, we're opening ourselves for an abuse. Now, getting an equity partner that will help government so that we can have 2 eyes, we can have 4 ears that can run this airline. And it's not only about government that will appoint board members, it will also be about the equity partner that will bring expertise at board level, will bring expertise at the management level. So we think this time by opening an opportunity for an equity partner, we're complementing the airline, we're bringing skills and we're bringing resources. Down the line, we think that government must stop pumping money into SAA. The frustration that you are expressing is well placed, very frustrating to all of us pumping money into SAA without seeing any good returns. But this time, the good thing is that we're introducing a partner, which is from the private sector, that will run this airline together with government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Masiko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, thank you very much for your detailed response. As a developing country with an economy of our size, it is important to have a well-managed state-owned enterprises to assist the program of economic development and transformation. The question is to you, Deputy President. Could you elaborate on the details of how the 10.5 billion allocated to SAA will be utilized? Thank you very much.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Well, first of all, the money that is given to SAA, to the business rescue practitioners, is to try and pay all creditors that we owe, except lenders. You remember that as government we have given SAA money, and we continue to pay money to lenders where SAA has lended money. That is separate, but here we are going to pay creditors where SAA has accepted a service and has not paid for that service. That is one. Secondly, as we are going to restructure, we hope that the new airline is not going to accommodate all the employees, and we are giving space for severance packages that will be paid to employees. As and when they want to leave the employ of SAA. Again, when the airline was grounded, a number of people bought tickets, and those tickets could not be utilized, so people could not fly because planes were grounded. SA bought tickets but could not fly. So this is a big number of people that must be paid. Those go into paying those people. We call it the unflown ticket liability. I've said the legacy debt to various lenders already we've paid up to an amount of 16.4 billion progressively. So yes, this 10.5 billion is calculated to settle all those creditors, to settle all the liabilities, and then begin a new airline. So it has been calculated and will be closely monitored by the department as a shareholder and the board that is going to be appointed soon that will help us monitor the beginning of the new airline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next supplementary question is asked by Honorable Ntlangwini.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President of the ANC, local government is at the cold face of service delivery, and it's the municipalities that must be responsible for many of these services. However, municipalities don't have money because majority of our people don't work, don't pay the rates, and do not pay municipal services. As a result, municipalities depend mostly on equitable share and conditional grants, with exceptions to your metros, and these become sources of economic activities in most areas. To change this, Deputy President, the EFF have proposed that over and above changing the division of revenue formula that gives municipalities 10% of the raised revenue to give more money to municipalities. And thus, Deputy President, you have agreed with us in the past. We must also make clear conditions that equitable share and conditional grants of municipalities must be spent in local locally produced goods and services. Do you agree, Deputy President? If you agree, Deputy President, with the EFF, what are you going to do to ensure that this become government policy
Your time
and
expired,
legislative?
Honourable
Thank you.
Member. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Well, I note the proposal, and probably it's worth to be considered over time. I can't, on my feet, say, yes, I agree. Well, it can be considered as a proposal, but what I've said today is that we have instituted an infrastructure fund. That's one. This infrastructure fund, which is going to be located in the DPSA. This fund is meant to help municipalities included in terms of their water infrastructure, in terms of their roads infrastructure. Now, we are going to do this by opening an investment into that fund by the private sector. So government at a national level is going to run this infrastructure together with the private sector. We're going to allow the private sector to invest in that fund long term. But this will help municipalities in terms of managing their infrastructure. Then we're quite aware of the problem that you are raising of municipalities being unable to raise revenue because of their revenue base, which is very limited. We are saying we're going to pass this bill that we're talking about. This bill is going to, this Municipal Fiscal Powers and Functions Amendment Bill, which will allow municipalities to get revenue for every project that is being undertaken in their respective spaces. They are going to tax that project, whether you are building a house, whether you are building whatever you're going to build in a space of a municipality. The municipality will be in a position to levy, to get money from that. So the National Treasury is going to regulate, put regulations and guidelines on how to help municipalities on how to collect revenue using that piece of legislation. So we think, yes, as much as we agree that municipalities are unable, their capacity to raise revenue is limited, over time it's going to be boosted by this bill, but we must also look at probably merging certain municipalities, because some municipalities don't have economic opportunities within their jurisdiction. It will take time for us to find some economic spin-offs and activities that can help generate some income within those municipalities. So it will take time. It's just a reservoir of people that are staying there without any economic activity and without any possibility in the near future of creating economic activity. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next supplementary question is asked by Honorable Van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, the Department of Home Affairs is one of those who recently had its budget cut by 562 million. And why? Because these millions were once again needed to bail out disgraced, failed state entities. Deputy President, how do you reconcile these budget cuts knowing that our borders are porous, knowing that we only have 600 immigration inspectors nationwide, knowing that the violent truck driver protests this week over the employment of undocumented and/or illegal migrants, as well as the mystery disappearance of the Bushiri family, are obvious symptoms of an immigration system that has completely collapsed? My question, therefore, Deputy President, in light of these budget cuts, what's your government's plan to immediately address the collapse of our immigration system, including the concerns raised by truck drivers? And how far has your government gone in ascertaining which government officials and or ministers aided and abetted the great Bushiri escape? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We're quite aware of the situation in our borders, where some of our borders are really porous. The fence in those borders has collapsed, which has put a very serious strain on the National Defense Force to mend those borders. But again, the real border posts, we feel they need to be improved. There are a lot of things that are happening which are illegal in those border posts. That is why we are now piloting this border management authority that we are going to put in place, which is going to be funded. Minister of Home Affairs is moving ahead in terms of the implementation of the border management authority. Your concern about cutting the spending, our view was that government departments must reprioritize. We're taking advantage of the situation that there was a month, there was 2 months of lockdown where there was no movement in terms of whatever work that was supposed to do. So we could not spend money as government during those days of the lockdown. Correctly speaking, there's money that we're supposed to spend on those days, but because of the lockdown, we could not spend that money. So we needed to reprioritize. We reprioritized, firstly, some of the money into COVID-19 to deal with COVID-19. And we reprioritized some of the money to deal with SAA, because we still feel SAA is important in this country. We need this airline. It's a decision that we took that, look, we need this airline for our tourism, for our growth. We still need it. We are aware of the mismanagement that happened in the past, but we want to really improve this airline. I'm happy that the President has appointed the SOE Council that has begun to do some work in terms of strengthening all our SOEs. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next question is question 20, asked by Honorable Shivambo. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development has appraised the Interministerial Committee on Land Reform about the status of the land that has been advertised for state disposal to emerging farmers, which indicates that some of this land is already occupied, some is used by farmers, local communities, and in certain instances, the land has been occupied illegally. To this end, the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, on the 10th of this month, gave an update to the media wherein she announced the advertisement of 529,000 hectares of land available for release. This is part of the 700,000 hectares of land that has been announced by the President in his State of the Nation address in February this year. In the same media briefing, the Minister stated that government is currently engaged in a process of land rights inquiry just to ascertain the status of this land occupation, particularly on the land that has been advertised for state disposal to emerging farmers. The process will enable the state to have a record of which farm or land is occupied by whom, how such occupation came about in the first place, and what activities are being undertaken on that piece of land that is state-owned. The inquiry will also include addressing the rights of farm dwellers and other affected persons, as well as to ensure that proper procedures for formalization and regularization for those already occupying the land are undertaken where necessary. The Interministerial Committee has also taken proactive measures to address emergent challenges of conflict that emanate from land reform processes by identifying and addressing the root causes of these conflicts and tend to include land invasion, land eviction, contestation on grazing and farming rights, rights of labor tenants, farm workers, occupiers, as well as farmers and farm dwellers. To this end, a rural and safety strategy has been developed and is being implemented, which is inclusive of the work done by the Minister of Police and the South African Police Services to address crimes committed in rural communities where such land-related conflicts manifest themselves. As government, we want to reiterate our call to our citizens to exercise restraint and allow government to implement the necessary policies and constitutional reforms aimed at redressing the imbalances of the past as reflected in skewed and inequitable patterns of land access and ownership. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Deputy President.
Speak. Thank you. It is therefore critical that as government we put in place enabling policies to regulate access to land for human settlement and for agriculture, especially for emerging farmers and communities, wherein we prioritize women and youth who form the majority of our population, as well as people with disability who have been marginalized for the longest time. Where planted violation, incitement of violence, lawlessness, land grabs occur, the law will have to take its course. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you for that correction, Deputy President. Honorable Shivambo.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, whilst we welcome the philosophical and ideological underpinning of leasing the land to the historically disadvantaged people, we've got a problem, one, with the fact that all the land that is being leased out now is exclusively from the Bantu states. This explains why of the 700,000 hectares of land being allocated and of the 896 farms due for leasehold, not a single hectare and not a single farm is in the Western Cape or Gauteng, which are bastions of white land control and ownership. And the land that is earmarked for distribution does not have the agricultural support infrastructure, such as water, such as proximity to markets. We are just setting people up for failure. And part of the land that has been identified for this redistribution is a land in Gwatu in the Eastern Cape, in Chris Hani district, which is currently occupied by farm dwellers and subsistence farmers, most of whom will not be able to meet the application criteria of a certain annual turnover and the rental obligations to the state. Our question is, why are you not using parts of the constitutional obligations of public purpose and in the public interest to repossess the land from the colonial settlers and give to our people? Isn't expropriation without compensation the only viable solution? Deputy President, you are saying that there is going to be an inquiry on the land that has been advertised already on who is there and who is not there. Wasn't that supposed to be the first stage that you engage in, to say that before you say you're going to call for applications on state land, you go and inquire who is in that land, whether it's being utilized beneficially by black people? You have not done that, and already people are going to make applications on land that is being utilized by people who rightfully are supposed to be the occupiers and users of that land, in a manner that is consistent with the Freedom Charter of saying that the land must be shared amongst those who work it. They are working it now, but your policy direction doesn't seem to want to take the land, give to those who work it.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Shivamu. Well, you correct. Most of the land, firstly, that has been advertised, it's in the former homeland. But there are some pieces of land that have been advertised that were in the former white areas, if we want to call it that way. But the majority of the land, yes, it's in the former homeland. Of course, this land in those former homelands, it's land that belongs to the state, which must be formally disposed, formalized, and allow people to occupy it and use it. So it's a step in the right direction. We're still continuing. We are continuing to identify pieces of land that are in the hands of government. This is the first stage, and the second stage will also include land that is in the former white areas. Honorable Zivambu, there are too many ways to skin a cat. We have decided to advertise and simultaneously take this inquiry. Yes, I agree with your option of saying do the inquiry first, then you advertise, but you can do it simultaneously. Advertise and inquire. Who is here? The purpose is not to penalize people. The purpose is to dispose this land correctly, and we put it correctly in our books to say there is so and so in that piece of land, and we feel the land is correctly utilized, even if this person has not correctly got the land. But this time we are putting a process to give this land to this person, and we document it. We are not going to chase people that are making a living on the land, because our intention is to ensure that our people are given land in order to make a living. So we can't negate that purpose and objective. Those that are there now, that are utilizing the land, are going to be affirmed without any failure. No one is going to be chased away. If that happens, I'll be happy to be the one who intervenes. Because all of us are saying, no, let's give land to people, let's allow people to till the land, let's increase our productive capacity as a country so that there's food security going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Agbare Breed.
Dankie, agbare adjunct Speaker. Deputy President, do you not agree that one of the biggest contributing factors to this problem is because of the fact that people do not have the title deeds to their land, and thus most land is in the possession of the state? The fact is, the ANC government, your government, are not willing to empower South Africa's people. It is a well-known fact that farmers cannot farm effectively and cannot grow their businesses without owning their land. If farmers do not own their land, they have no collateral against which to borrow. Will you today clearly take a stance and put on record that the ANC government will ensure that all farmers be given the title deeds to their farms to ensure a thriving agricultural sector? I thank you, Deputy.
Thank you. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I think there are different categories in terms of ownership and occupation of land. There are some people from government for a particular period. That is prevalent and it's acceptable in our rules. Some people have leased the land for 30 years, 40 years, and now, if that 30 years is over, the lease going forward. Now, there are instances where we have restituted some land through our restitution program, land that has been claimed, and we have given it back to people with title deed. Now, through our redistribution process, there's land that we have given it back to people with title deeds. Now, we are continuing that process to say there is no need for the state to hold these vast pieces of land if people out there are crying for land. Let us give this land to the people. So we're in that process now. That is why this question, because we have advertised some pieces of land, and in certain instances there are people that are occupying those pieces of land. And if we find that these people are correct, there are those who are farm dwellers that have got nowhere to stay, and in this process they are going to benefit. We're going to give them land so that this question of endless, they are moving up and down, they don't have to graze. This is going to come to an end. Now, progressively, as we move forward, we are restoring land to people, and we're going to give them title. That is the objective. Now, in the near future, very soon, we are going to be announcing the pieces of land that were claimed by people that are in the hands of government. Government has agreed to release those pieces of land free of charge. So those will be announced, and all of us will go there and hand over these pieces of land that were claimed by our people that are in the hands of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next supplementary question is asked by Honorable Tring of the SCDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, the ACGP believes that black landlessness has become a convenient weapon for political populists in South Africa. This is corroborated by Sibusiso Nkomo of Afrobarometer, whose survey revealed that most South Africans of voting age prioritize jobs and security over land ownership issues. We in the ACGP agree that land reform has been painfully slow, as well as corrupt, and has done little to achieve equitable distribution and access to land for black South Africans. An example of this is that currently the Department of Public Works is still awaiting for National Treasury to endorse the release of over 323,000 hectares of land for social economic projects. Now, former President of South Africa, Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe, said, if property is not protected, you destroy its value. And if there's no value, then you won't have an economy going forward. In the light of this, what government initiatives, Mr. Deputy President, are there that are inclusive, protecting the rights of farm workers, farmers, as well as the protection of property rights, while condemning the work of anarchists and antagonists who seek to negate all progress made through the government's social cohesion projects? I thank you.
Honorable Tring, in future, you must reduce your preambles to your question, because now you take our time that is not and does not belong to you, it belongs to other members here. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Let me try and correct this assertion that people are taking advantage and they are abusing landlessness. They are trying to make political statements. I disagree with that point. I disagree because as a country we have got a past. We are coming from a past where people have been dispossessed of their land. That we know is documented in our history. Now, this government, ourselves as a country, have been recognized that problem. We have taken the necessary steps to correct it. That is why we are talking about it. It's not about political point scoring. It's about addressing a problem that happened in the past. And I think we should allow that conversation to move on because it's about addressing a problem. Now, we have decided as government to reintroduce the expropriation bill as allowed by the Constitution, to say where possible, government must put legislation to define the conditions under which land can be expropriated. Now, for public use, for public purpose. That can be challenged, but we are going to put the bill before yourself. Is there in the Constitution? Some are saying we should have proceeded with this. There's no need to amend Section 25 and whatnot. But as this Parliament, we have decided that no, let's move ahead and amend Section 25 so that we are clear. We're clear that where there is a public outcry about a certain piece of land, government can take the necessary step to restore that land to the rightful owners. Or if there's public usage for that piece of land, government can expropriate that land. Now, that is why we've taken these two steps. It's not like people are talking about this subject in this country because they want to score political points. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Kabekulu.
Angibonga sekela somlomo. Sorry, sekela mongameli. Ukhuluma ngokubuyisela umhlaba ebantwini ukusiza abantu ukuthi bakwazi ukulima abantu bayithuthukise bakwazi ukuzondla bondle neSouth Africa. Kunabalimi abampisholo abebesebenza vele emaplazini abashiwe ngabalimi abamhlophe obeqhubeka namaplaza bawasebenza ngempumelelo. Ngenxa yomona nobugovu abanye bamalungu eParliament nabo behluleka ukwasenza amaplaza abantu vele abakhiqizayo njengamanje. Case in point, in Eastern Cape sinomlimi obephumelele usuke umakhelwane wakhe wazomphuca iplaza eMpumalanga province nakhona kwenzeke esifanayo. Ngabe ke mhlonishwa mongameli ukhona nomgomo okhona omhlaba othi umlimi nomlimi kufanele abe namaplaza amangaki ukuze kugwenywe ubugovu bese kubona kwamhlophe lapho khona umhlophe ube namaplaza mhlawumbe abaloko ko 10 20 eyedwa kuma province ahlukeneyo. Ukhona nomgomo umhlonishwa mongameli sekela mongameli ozovimbela ubugovu lapho khona abantu bezogxamalaza ngoba nakho bebona indawo ezinye ziproductive ngoba zisetshenzwa bona bengakwazi ukuyisebenzela. Ngiyathokoza.
Deputy President.
Ngiyabonga sekela la somlomo. Asinawo umthetho wokuthi ke uma thina sizimisela ukusebenzisana nohulumeni futhi ke sizimisela ukuthi umhlaba omunye sinawo esingawusebenzisi singanikezela ngawo. Kungakho sayi advertiser i-land donation policy ngoba sifuna ukuvumela wonke umuntu ofuna ukunikezela ngomhlaba ukuthi akwenze lokho ngomgomo othile. Ipolicy ke le njengoba sikhuluma izobhekwa seyifike egcineni siyipublishile abantu bayibheka manje seyifike ukuthi icabinet ithatha isinqumo sokuqina. Siyosebenzisa ke le policy ukuthi uma umuntu efuna ukudonate land asebenzise lo mgomo. Abasozimayini amakampani amakhulu afikile kimi afikile kupresident athi siyiland le singayidonate singanisiza futhi ukuthi siyibuyisele esimeni lapha ingalimeka khona siyibuyisele kini. Manje ke siyayibonga lento leyo. We want to say thank you to all South Africans who are taking that attitude of donating land because this is the right thing to do. It's happening in a very good spirit that seeks to build South Africa. Kodwa ke kukhona la umhlaba sizowuthatha ngoba sinezizathu ezithile esizibekayo sizibeke phambi kwesizwe ukuthi lo mhlaba lo siyawuthatha ngoba suhulumeni ngalesizathu lesi nalesizathu lesi futhi ke sizimisele ukungabhadali lo mhlaba or sibhadala imali ethile but ke inkulumo ekhona lapha endlini ikhuluma ngokuthi siwuthatha umhlaba singawukhokheli uma ngabe sifuna ukusebenzisela for the public concern. Umhlaba lo siwuthatha ngoba sifuna ukuthi sisize isizwe sase South Africa. Sizokubeka lokho njengezizathu ukuthi nazi izathu uma ngabe icourt lithi hayi cha lezizathu lezi azizwakali lizokusho lokho. Cha government lethana ezinye izathu asikho izizathu ezifana nalezi ezinganigunyaza nje ukuthi nithathe umhlaba. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next question is question 21, asked by Honorable Tseke. Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We can assure the House that the money that has been made available to South African Airways will be put into good use. Government, through the Department of Public Enterprise, will closely monitor these funds to ensure that they are used solely for that intended purpose, as reflected in the Business Rescue Plan. The Department of Public Enterprise will be charged to ensure that this money is utilized correctly. On top of that, Treasury will also be charged with that oversight to ensure that this time around, this money is put into good use. As indicated during our oral replies to the National Council of Provinces on the 3rd of March 2020, government took a decision to heed the business rescue practitioners' advice not to liquidate SAA, but preferred to restructure and transform the national carrier into a sustainable airline. The general skepticism by some of our South African people towards the viability of keeping and providing government financial support to SAA is understandable, more especially given the historical challenges experienced by the airline that has cumulatively impacted on its financial performance and competitiveness. It is common cause that the current state of our national carrier is largely as a result of legacy issues relating to tough global aviation conditions, poor governance within the management of the airline, mismanagement, and other malfeasance that we all know. Not benefits of ensuring that SAA is kept afloat and contributes to the country's economy far outweigh those of collapsing the national carrier. For instance, through the national carrier, we will be able to facilitate international and regional trade through reliable air connectivity in the region, especially movement of people and goods. Indirect benefits in the supply chain, including food and beverage, retail goods, business services, for example, call centers, transport, manufacturing of goods, further contributing to the economy. There is direct contribution to the country's tourism and job creation in the sector. Productivity levels are improved across the economy as SAA technical aircraft maintenance provides services to other local airlines that do not have maintenance licensing. There is advancement of the country's innovation and skills development through SAA cadet programs, as well as contributing to the advancement of the aerospace industry technical capability for our country. Considering all these economic benefits, it is notable that governments across the world recognize the airline industry as an essential economic enabler and thus are rendering relevant support to their aviation enterprises. Equally so, South Africa as a developing country needs to maintain air connectivity towards achieving economic development in line with these global trends. In pursuing this path, it is encouraging to note that government's efforts during efforts of turning around SAA and placing it on a sustainable path. Government of public enterprise is working on a transitional plan for the exit of the business rescue practitioners and further in placing the airline under the guardianship of a duly established leadership. This work will be embarked upon finalization of an agreement with the relevant stakeholders, including employees, their respective trade unions, and SAA management on the revision of terms and conditions. Once all these measures have been undertaken, we are certain to have a world-class airline that is competitive, reliable, and the most sought-after carrier in the African continent, of which all South Africans can be proud of. Honorable Deputy Speaker, with the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in flight cancellation, grounding of aircrafts, and closure of airports, as well as retrenchment of employees, government across the world had to step in to support their airlines, thus cushioning them from such challenges. Accordingly, SAA has not been immune to these challenges facing airlines globally, including challenges prior to COVID-19 pandemic. As we embark on efforts of reconstruction and recovery, our success largely depends on a well-run and effectively coordinated state institutions that consistently deliver high-quality services while prioritizing the nation's developmental objectives as envisaged by the National Development Plan. The allocation of 10.5 billion rands, honorable members, will thus contribute to easing long-term obligations such as legacy debt, high cost of labor and leases, thus improving on the cost structure of the airline. The identification of a strategic equity partner, for instance, seeks to ensure that the airline receives no further funding from government. Its strategic importance is therefore to bring in equity, fit-for-purpose management skills, technology, and commercial acumen into the entity. This intervention should contribute to placing the airline on a new path of recovery. Honorable Deputy Speaker, as part of ensuring effectiveness of the intervention by government in supporting our strategic SOEs, including SAA, work within government is continuing under the leadership of the President of ensuring that our country's SOEs are aligned to the country's developmental agenda and are thus viable, efficient, effective, and competitive. For instance, the Presidential State-Owned Enterprise Council, which comprises of leadership from government, some ministers, comprises of labor, business, and academia. These are leaders that are charged with providing to reposition the SOEs as effective instruments of economic development. The need to ensure that SAA is overseen by an effective management is an area which applies across all our state-owned enterprises. We are confident that efforts being led by the Presidential State-Owned Enterprises Council will result in having efficiently managed SOEs that are development-orientated and contributing to the deepening of South Africa's industrialization. It is our view, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that in order to change the trajectory of our national airline, we need to have a capable workforce that is skilled, experienced, and focused on the developmental agenda. Therefore, our expectation is that the new board, which will be appointed in the next few weeks and days, will focus on returning the airline to sustainability. This expectation also implies that the appointment of the airline's executive team, which will be done after the appointment of the board, must happen with immediate effect. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Tseke.
Ke a leboga motlatsa Musa Khutla wa ntlo ebile ke rata go leboga motlatsa presidente wa naga ka karabo e nonofileng ya re fileng yona. Deputy President, the process that you have outlined in the response in the future of the South African Airways has a number of options. There is a discussion around two options, being the recapitalization route with restructuring or the liquidation route. What, in your opinion, Deputy President, makes the recapitalization and restructuring a rational and preferred option and will serve the interest of the airline and country better than liquidation? Ke a leboga mo President, motlatsa mo President.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Well, the route that we've chosen, Airline, not liquidation, it's informed by a number of reasons. Firstly, whether you like it or not, if you take liquidation, you are not exempted that you must pay. You are not exempted from paying your lenders, from paying your creditors. You will have to pay your employees some retrenchment packages, which is also a cost to government. Some of the aeroplanes were leased. We are owing money for those leased aircrafts. Whether you opt for liquidation, you must pay that debt. So we were going to pay large sums of money and finally liquidate the airline and remain with nothing. Now, the route that we have chosen, that yes, the obligation of paying all your lenders, your creditors and all that, it's a must, but let's try and restructure the airline and have the airline for our developmental needs. This airline, it's a good instrument, a good catalyst for growth and development, like we've said. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Very good afternoon to you, Deputy President. Deputy President, the success of South African Airways will depend on learning from the mistakes that we've made in the past. Okay, and some of the mistakes, and something that repeatedly I myself have brought to the attention of our House, but we do not get answers. What really happened in the case of Coleman Andrews, who sold your entire fleet of aeroplanes to his own company and then leased it from the very same company? Why is there no repercussions for that, and why are we not recovering the money? The other mistakes has been our call center, like you said, we spoke about call centers, which is in the United States of America, the high price of water, 1 in 3 workers not being at work and things. But very importantly, Deputy President, in order to make a success of South African Airways, will you encourage that all public representatives and officials, since we are complaining that we're using taxpayers' money, will in future, once SAA is on the air again, use South African Airways as charity begins at home?
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Your time has expired. Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Honorable member is coming with a very creative proposal. But remember, Parliament is a different arm of the state. Parliament can take that decision that, look, all our members must use South African Airways. This is our airline. You are within your right to do that. But South African Airways must be able to service you, not continue to have flights cancelled, disrupt your programs and all that. It must be an efficiently run airline. Now, the problem that you're talking about of a number of aeroplanes that were sold and leased again. Now, we are not getting the business rationale for that. The explanation that was given to us was that it is costly to run an airline, an aeroplane that you own, rather than to run an aeroplane that you have leased, because you can always change it as and when you feel it must go for service, you then change it and get another one. Whether that's correct, I think it's for the Department of Public Enterprise that is still investigating the matter. But I must say that South Africa needs an airline. We are just unfortunate of the past, what happened to SAA. SAA was not well run. There was mismanagement. There was a lot of corruption within SAA. Now, if it was a well-run airline, I can tell you it was going to boost the country. Now, going forward, like I said, to curb that, to ensure that we don't return to that eventuality of corruption and mismanagement, we felt that this time around we must get an equity partner. We must get the private sector that will run this airline together with us, so that there is an infusion of skills, better skills that we don't have in the public sector that will come from the private sector. We think we are going to succeed, but we need this airline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Lees, you are the third. Honorable Lees. Oh, Pumnumzana, Lindawe.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, to you, to the Deputy President. Deputy President, the question of SAA and the question of Coleman Edwards has been settled a long time ago. And has that episode in the airline had any impact at all in the running of the airline over the last 5 years? And the losses, massive losses, and bailouts that we have incurred during that period.
The honorable member seemed to have had a disconnection problem. Is there someone in the House who can complete his question?
Honorable Speaker, can you hear me now?
Yes, please finalize because you've run out of time. Go ahead. You're almost running out of time.
Honorable Deputy.
Ask your question direct.
Can the Deputy President please explain whether or not the issue of the Coleman Edwards sale of airplanes had any impact on the massive losses that have been incurred by SAA over the last 5 years and the bailouts that have resulted?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I think I might have heard the question to say the impact of the sale of the aeroplanes to the situation in which SAA finds itself. Am I correct, Deputy
Yes.
Speaker?
In other words, he says the impact of Coleman Andrews and what he did. Are we attributing the recent bailouts and other things to him as well?
Not really. We still want to investigate the impact of that decision by the previous board of SAA. That will be separate. It's going to be investigated, but the business rescue practitioners were given an assignment to rescue which was a collapsing, came up because they've indicated the debtors that we owe to say, if you want to resuscitate this airline, this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need. Really, they did not go into details of SAA. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thanks, Deputy President. Honorable Kwankwa. Uyangena lungel hloniphekile. It's not connected.
He's covered, Deputy Speaker.
If Honorable Kwankwa is there anyone in the House who can represent him? Okay. I'm afraid if we don't get any indication of what's happening, he should have communicated to us. We will proceed to the next question, which is asked by Honorable Buthelezi. Deputy President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We've always been open and frank about the issues surrounding Eskom and how Eskom should be turned around for it to succeed. Even to this date, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we continue to be alive to the reality faced by the power utility, and by the way, which is largely informed by legacy issues and other challenges related to rising debts. As government, our top priority is to address Eskom's financial and operational challenges and return it to a growth trajectory. Given the strategic role and importance of Eskom to the economy, failure to turn Eskom around is not an option. It is thus no coincidence that over the past few years, Eskom's focus has been on strengthening its financial position through demand stimulation, cost curtailment, and efficiencies, as well as striving to achieve a cost-effective price of electricity. This was support from government, which commenced now in 2020 financially. In addition, Eskom is implementing a comprehensive plan which focuses on 5 key areas, that is namely operational recovery, improving the income statement, addressing the balance sheet, accelerating the restructuring of Eskom into initiatives, and building a high-performance organization through addressing the culture to energize the workforce. Discernible progress has been made in establishing stabilizing the firm sustainable path. Honorable Deputy Speaker, on the issue of the financial results as released by Eskom, let us understand the loss for what it is. Correctly speaking, a net loss is not a demonstration that no work is being done, as there's been recorded revenue growth. It is true that Eskom recorded a net loss of 20.5 billion rands for the 2019-2020 financial year, of which is in line with what was budgeted and in the first place affected by the revenue collection. At the same time, Eskom also posted an operating profit of 9.2 billion during this financial year, the previous financial year. However, the unsustainable debt level of more than 480 billion rands has led to Eskom's gross interest costs becoming the second biggest cost item, both employee benefit costs and capital expenditure. We wish to place it on record that government has taken a view that Eskom must be supported to implement a comprehensive turnaround program. This will ensure that the utility develops and enhances its requisite institutional capabilities to meet the country's energy needs. This is why, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Eskom political task team, which is aimed at ensuring that Eskom is able to resolve its problems, typically meets every month. These meetings are preceded by those of Eskom's technical task team. This technical task team is made out of director generals, together with Eskom officials and other stakeholders, technical experts and regulatory bodies to deliberate on key matters that will take this utility forward. Cost savings remain a key aspect of the financial turnaround plan. The 2020 and 2021 corporate plan outlines a cost-saving budget target of 55.6 billion rand over the next 3-year period from the financial year 2021 to the financial year 2023. The cost-saving target for the financial year 2021 is targeted at 14.1 billion. Therefore, even with government support, Eskom's liquidity remains constrained due to poor long-term financial sustainability. Government's equity support is assisting Eskom in servicing its debt commitments. Nonetheless, equity support only improves liquidity, but will not finally resolve Eskom's financial viability. In the implementation of timelines envisaged in the Department of Public Enterprise roadmap, Eskom has reported that the timelines for the transmission can be met, although the legal separation of generation and distribution will take somewhat longer time. The delay is due to legal and regulatory changes which are beyond Eskom's control. Eskom has also decided to accelerate the legal separation of transmission, which will create the required certainty for prospective investors in generation capacity, in turn ensuring bids are fairly adjudicated relative to Eskom generation. The end state of the process is to ensure that the three divisions will be able to operate as standalone and financially visible and viable businesses. This will further ensure that Eskom is able to mitigate the risk to debt and lender security as well as asset base. In view of this, we are comfortable with the progress towards achieving the milestones envisaged in the roadmap. That means Eskom is on track. While Eskom is improving its revenue and debt collection measures to fund its operation and ensures that electricity is supplied on a sustainable basis, rising municipal debts continue to pose a serious risk to Eskom long-term financial sustainability. They also significantly contribute to liquidity challenges that are facing the entity. We therefore fully support Eskom's effort to collect revenue by following its credit control measures. And we reiterate our commitment made in both houses to ensure that organs of state do expedite payment that is outstanding, that is owed to Eskom, and that they settle all outstanding debts that are owed to municipalities. The Eskom political task team is also in the process of finalizing an effective institutional mechanism and resolve disputes where there are disagreements on the debt amount that is owed. This will culminate in the appointment of facilitators to oversee this process. More importantly, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we have a responsibility to improve a culture of payment for services such as electricity and water by our communities to avoid unnecessary disruptions in the provision of these services. We're in the process of rolling out a comprehensive campaign to raise awareness and encourage our people to pay for electricity and other services that they consume. This is the right thing our people must do, to pay for the services that they consume. We make this clarion call on all our communities to pay for electricity so that we can enable Eskom and municipalities to provide these services on a continuous and sustainable basis. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Before I give to Honorable Buthelezi, may I request members on the virtual platform kindly switch off your videos It may just help to improve the bandwidth available to the Deputy President as he responds in the House. Switching off your video may just contribute to that. Please do that. And those who ask a supplementary question can switch them on when they ask and switch it off when they've done so. Honorable members, let's invite Honorable Buthelezi. EM.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The Minister of Finance has indicated that PIC is willing to help Eskom's debt, and reports suggest that Treasury and Eskom are already in talks to this arrangement. If then talks are successful, can the Deputy President tell us when Eskom foresees itself being debt-free and financially viable? And secondly, what happens if Eskom fails to fulfill its end of agreement? Will the South African public have to sacrifice critical government projects to resolve the debt, as we have seen with SAA? Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. There is only one meeting that I've attended with PIC where the Eskom debt was discussed. It was an initial discussion that did not go very far enough to really confirm whether PIC is willing to take a step forward to come closer to the challenge that is faced by Eskom to deal with the debt. So it is an early stage in order to pronounce whether that is going to be possible or not possible. Can we allow the discussion to proceed? And we are going to be told in due course about the outcome of those discussions. Thank you very much,
Thank you, Deputy
Honorable
President.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Mkonazi, please switch off your mic. Members on the virtual platform, go ahead. Honorable Shalembe, please switch off. Please switch off. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, we acknowledge the extraordinary work of the Eskom political task team under your leadership towards Eskom turnaround strategy. As you elaborated at your first response, Honorable Deputy President, can you elaborate on the plan for the PTT to deal with municipal debt to Eskom by big businesses, households, government departments and entities to pay what is due to Eskom, and what are all spheres of government and leaders of all sectors of society doing to ensure that all citizens, responsible citizens who have an income, understand the importance of paying the services they receive, and how the payment for services will assist municipalities and Eskom to continue rendering these services in a sustainable manner. Deputy Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member, please help us. I did hear you talk about a political task team. Now, and then later you say PTT. Now, we do want people to hear what you are saying, that you are still talking about the same thing. So I'm requesting you in future not to do what you did. That's all I'm saying. Okay. The Deputy President heard you because he works where they speak that kind of language you are speaking. Deputy President?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. You're correct. I've heard exactly what the member is trying to convey. Now, we have done a bit of work in the political task team. which I'm happy of. I'm happy of the progress we have made. We've moved insofar as all our public institutions are concerned. Government departments have moved a step forward, just one step, though grappling some difficult. To date, we have recorded almost just above 4 billion money that is coming from the public sector that goes into Eskom. Now, Eskom is then dealing with individuals. Eskom is also dealing in some cases with that municipalities will then cry and request our interventions. But it must be made clear that our intervention, whatever cry that municipalities might cry, we are here to support Eskom to recover money. We are not going to be really lenient to municipalities. Municipalities must know that they must pay. And we are not lenient to government departments that, finally municipalities must pay Eskom, so that we increase the sustainability, help the entire country so that we can grow economically. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next question is asked by Honorable Kachalia.
We're witness to crippling debt compounded by eye-watering losses and a never-ending search for bailouts for Eskom. Now the ANC wants to access the combined surplus of 225 billion rand sitting in the Unemployment and Compensation Fund. In parallel, the DP should note that Minister Mboweni is again pursuing the PIC. You're a lucky man. Despite misgivings from the ANC's tripartite alliance, whose pockets would be affected by the use of government pension funds. Given that the Unemployment and Compensation Fund's healthy surplus was amassed by prudent investment in private sector listed companies, what assurances can be given that these funds, so desperately sought to augment bailouts, will not be squandered, as was the case historically? And what structural changes vis-à-vis labor, bloated e-band salaries, and transparent procurement are envisaged to mollify investors and affected parties? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. With regards to the amount of money that is owed by Eskom, you'll remember that, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we have voted some amount of money to support Eskom as government. And as this House, we have passed that bill. And currently, as we're speaking, we are supporting Eskom. And the money that is coming to support Eskom, it's entirely going to the servicing of the debt of the 480 billion. Of course, they've got an issue with the interest. Now, the problem then is compounded by municipalities that are not paying, citizens that are not paying, and hence Eskom experiencing a loss of 20.5 billion. It's important to encourage people to pay so that we minimize that loss. In terms of settling this debt, of course, government is looking at different options. Eskom is looking at different options. I am saying I attended one meeting with the PIC where they were discussing this Eskom debt. And that meeting was not really indicating whether PIC is really favorable to assisting or converting the amount that Eskom is owing to the PIC, converting it into equity. That was not discussed. So we will allow that process to proceed if it does proceed, but we are looking at different options. As the political task team, our mandate is to try and assist Eskom to run efficiently, because with the amount of energy that we're generating and we're selling, Eskom can sustain itself. The only problem is the debt, and we seem to be stabilizing forward. Only needs to be attended, but generally the improvement in terms of operational issues, the improvement in terms of our generation capacity, maintenance, all those are on track. The unbundling of Eskom on track. We seem to be battling with a few items on the table, but we can safely say Eskom is on the right track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. Honorable Mautwe.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, you can't say to us that Eskom is on the right track. The situation at Eskom is perhaps the greatest risk to the survival of this country. And you need to have the right kind of people at the helm of Eskom and the right kind of policies. We're talking today, Deputy President, you just said it now, that Eskom recorded 20.5 billion rand loss for this past financial year. Eskom is sitting at 71% of gearing, which simply means that they are unable to survive without the assistance from government. The situation will become even worse if they are unable to collect revenue and the interest rates shoots up. You do know that they will then be declared bankrupt. But even worse, Deputy President, is that this same leadership that is leading Eskom is projecting losses of about 26.2 billion rand in the next financial year, despite the confirmed government support of 56 billion rand. So, Deputy President, despite evidence pointing to the incompetence, nepotism, and corruption, do you still have confidence in the present leadership of Eskom to lead the entity out of its financial and functional problems? And why is Eskom persisting with the power purchase agreement with independent power producers, despite mounting evidence that these agreements are a drain on Eskom's financial health? I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Deputy.
Yeah, when you are telling me time, people have been speaking here for 5 minutes. You have not been saying anything.
Honorable Member, you are out of order.
You are out of order yourself.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the question.
Deputy President, a moment. One moment, Deputy President. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I'm rising on a point of order. A point of order that Comrade Honorable Mautwe is really out of order. She must withdraw. She cannot utter such words to the presiding officer.
Honorable members, my ruling is that that matter should be referred for consideration so that an appropriate sanction is measured out. I will not rule on that. I think it is better that it referred for dealing with. And especially because it doesn't appear to be the first time. It's a pattern. And so I think let's deal with that. Members need to know Rule 92 is very clear, and other rules that says you can't contest decisions of the presiding officer. And if you do, there's a process outlined of what you need to do. Thank you very much, Chief Whip. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I must say to the honorable member right from the onset that sitting where I'm sitting now, I've got full confidence in the leadership of Eskom currently. The CEO, the board, and some of the people that were appointed below the CEO. What I've noticed about that leadership is that they are true. When there's a problem, they don't try to appease South Africans. They talk straight, talk about the problem. When there is success, they talk about the success. And this is the kind of leadership that we require. So that when there's a problem, they don't mince their word, they say so. When there is success, they don't mince their word, they say so. So far, honorable member must know that when this leadership was appointed to the utility, already there were problems. The biggest problem was the debt level, which we're still grappling with. But on top of the debt level, the maintenance problem, the continuous load shedding that has been abated now. When they were appointed, there was continuous load shedding. They've improved the maintenance of our plants. We must give it to them. If we are fair as a country, we must give it to them. Now, the operations, the staff attitude is gradually changing for the better. We must give it to them. We must also encourage them. Where they've done good, we must say so. But not always condemn whether they are doing good. I mean, they're going to be discouraged. What kind of a people are we? Whenever people are doing good, at our service, we continue to bash at them. We continue to say negative things. I'm saying I'm at the helm of that institution with the political task team. The problems that we are confronting now are minimized. The biggest problem is the debt. Our people are not paying. That is a problem. Now, the biggest problem that we can sort immediately. Government institutions must pay. Government departments, municipalities, we are not going to really relax and rest until government departments have paid and municipalities have paid. Then continuously we're going to look for options to deal with the debt, of which that leadership in that power utility were appointed and they found that debt there. And collectively we're working with them to try and minimize that debt. But I think sitting here, we are on the right track. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Speaker, it is common cause that the Section 139 intervention in Maluti Upperfong failed. The residents are still suffering due to a complete lack of service delivery and outstanding debt to creditors is still skyrocketing. These interventions failed at most other municipalities as well. Municipalities fail to provide basic services. Residents and communities are left to fend for themselves. In terms of the Local Government Systems Act, communities are not detachable from the municipality as an entity. Many communities have taken over the role of providing basic services, fixing infrastructure, removing refuge, and so forth. Yet, they still have to pay the failed municipality for services they render themselves. The legislation do not permit privatization of services, but what will the Deputy President's solution be to address the recourse for these communities whose municipality and provincial governments have failed them while providing their own services? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy President, my apologies. I didn't give you a chance to respond. Now, he's already asked a supplementary question to a response you didn't give. So I request you to start with the answer. And then you can make a note about his supplementary question to come back to it. My apologies.
Okay.
Yeah. Please go ahead, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yeah, I understand the problem. Can I answer the question? Deputy Speaker, can I answer the question?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Section 139 of the Constitution provides for provincial intervention in local government when a municipality cannot or does not fulfill an executive obligation in terms of the Constitution. The relevant provincial executive may intervene by taking any appropriate steps to ensure fulfillment of that obligation. In this regard, Maluti Upperfong local municipality was placed under Section 139, 1B of the Constitution on the 10th February 2018, meaning that the Provincial Executive Committee assumed responsibility in Maluti Upperfong. This was necessary to maintain essential services, restore finances to a sound footing, and establish minimum standards for rendering of services. It must be noted that dissolution of Section 139(1)B takes effect after receipt of a notice by the minister responsible for local government, the provincial legislature, and the National Council of Provinces, unless set aside by the minister or the Council of Provinces. In this case of Maluti Upperfong local municipality, the decision to revoke Section 139 was a collective decision of all the parties involved. Wish to remind ourselves of the reasons why there was an intervention in this municipality. According to the closeout report, Honorable Deputy Speaker, by the administrator then, matters of concern in the municipality were the rising debt of Eskom to Eskom, non-payment of third parties covering pensions and medical aid, political instability in the municipality, poor or non-existent service delivery to residents, poor financial management, allegations of fraud and corruptions, institutional instability, labor instability, non-compliance of corporate governance prescripts by Maluta Pofong Water. The reasons provided for the revoking of Section 1391B were that the municipality was now stable enough to run its own affairs following the election of the council, which included the election of the executive mayor, a speaker, and the chief whip. Council structures of governance were elected and meetings were now taking place on a regular basis, unlike the earlier situation of 2018 where council did not sit for 8 months. Furthermore, the senior positions of municipal manager and chief financial officer had also been filled to bolster institutional capacity and sound financial management of the municipality. In the closeout report of the administrator and motivation provided for revocation, the province committed to develop post-intervention support package for the municipality aimed at strengthening its capacity to manage its own affairs, exercise its powers, and perform its functions in line with Section 154 of the Constitution. What is not in doubt is that even with this measures, the municipality continues to struggle in fulfilling its obligation to the people. The facts on the ground suggest that service delivery gaps have not been addressed. This point is further made by the administrator in his closeout report, wherein he flags risk facing the municipality, which include regular interruptions in the delivery of potable water, cash flow management, and financial sustainability, political interference in the administration, as well as a number of pending legal actions. The question we should therefore ask ourselves here today is why we have decided, we have agreed to the lifting of the intervention at the time, given the persistent challenges faced by the municipality and in its ability to deliver basic services. It is evident that despite the Maluta Pofong local municipality having provided with the necessary resources, it is still unable on its own to effectively and efficiently provide the basic services such as water, sanitation, and electricity. It is therefore our submission, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that in hindsight, Section 1391B may have been prematurely revoked. The current and recurring challenges on us to intervene immediately to provide the necessary support to the municipality so that it meets its constitutional obligation to the people is more than urgent. That is what we plan to do. Earlier this month, we made an undertaking to visit Maluta Pofong municipality and ensure that the people of Kwakwa receive water and electricity. This remains our commitment in this regard, and we are pleased to report that a technical team comprising of national government departments, the Free State Office of the Premier, Provincial Cocta, had begun work in this regard. We have also committed through the Eskom political task team, who will intervene in the impasse between Eskom and the municipality to ensure that there's support to the municipality to be able to collect revenue and pay their creditors. To this end, tomorrow on the 27th of November, together with the Minister of Public Enterprise, the Deputy Minister of Cocktail, the Free State Premier, the CEO of Eskom, as well as the leadership of Maluta Pofong local municipality, we will be meeting to find a solution to these immediate challenges that led to the disruption of electricity supply and lack of water. Indeed, residents of Kwakwa, Harrismith, Kesdale deserve better, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. It is, after all, what we have promised them as leaders who have been elected by them. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable members, we go to the second question. Honorable Hadebe.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Deputy Speaker, I did raise a question to the Deputy President that wasn't answered then. He only responded then to the first one. So if you will allow me, can I adjust my question and re-ask it to the Deputy President?
No. Whoa. Don't rule on my behalf, please. I'm still here, by the way. I'm still here. Honorable member, summarize it, please. I realize that. You're right, yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I listened what the Deputy President said, but he must also understand the frustration of communities that's paying for services and not receiving it. It's more than a year, and only now are the role players coming together. So the question stands, the legislation do not permit privatization of services. But what will the Deputy President's solution be to address a recourse for these communities whose municipalities and provincial governments has failed while providing their own services? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, because it was my mistake, I used my discretion to allow him to do what he's just done. This is not what you must try and do next time. I will say no. Deputy President, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Well, that is why I'm convening a meeting tomorrow of all the role players that I've mentioned. And I've requested a technical task team to go there. They have not yet presented a report back to me, and with proposal on what best can we do to address the situation. But my intention of convening tomorrow's meeting is to get it exactly from these leaders what is the best for that municipality. Because these leaders must understand that as much as there are these challenges, the people who are suffering are the people in that municipality. So we are accepting the fault of prematurely revoking the Section 139, having not really resolved all the issues. That is why we are going back now to assess and what best we can try and assist the situation. So I'm going to really try my best to try, and with the available leadership, to try and resolve the situation in order for these people in this municipality to receive their services. We must apologize to those who are paying for services that they are not receiving. We're encouraging our people to pay for services. Some people in this municipality are paying for services on a monthly basis, but they are receiving disrupted services, at times no services at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable the Deputy President, mindful of the fact that Section 139 is provincial intervention in local government. However, on the 23rd of August 2019, national government took over the intervention in Maluti Apofong. And again, on the 1st of April 2020, another provincial intervention was appointed. There has been inconsistencies in the application and implementation of Section 139 by provincial executives. Maluti Apofong being a classical example of this. My question, therefore, Deputy President, how far is the process of promulgating the national legislation to regulate the implementation of Section 139, which will entail the duration of the intervention and steps to be taken or considered when invoking Section 139? And can this be addressed expeditiously since the situation is dire in our municipalities? I thank you.
Honorable members, Honorable Makosini, please switch off your mic. Switch off your mic, Honorable Member.
Batho ba ba tshwenya speaker ke feditse ke a leboga.
Deputy President, please go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks for the question. Yes, I agree that there might be inconsistencies in this regard in the application of the Act. That is why we are admitting that we might have prematurely lifted the intervention. But whether we've done our best in the intervention, that is another question that we must look at, that I'm going to get a response from all those that we have requested to go there. In terms of the duration, according to the Constitution, there's no duration, there's no time stipulated for the intervention. The intervention can go on and on as long as the municipality is not fit to render the services as expected by that very section 152, if I'm correct, of the Constitution. Now, we can only lift the intervention when we are of the opinion that the municipality is now capable. The municipality has regained its capability and capacity to render the services as expected by the Constitution. In this regard, I don't think that was the case. We might have lifted the intervention at a point where the municipality have not reached a point where it can render the services as expected by the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Brink.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Maluti Apofong is one of those municipalities that owe a great deal of debt to Eskom and struggles to pay. As at the 31st of July, the total municipal debt to Eskom amounted to 43.9 billion rand, of which 30.9 billion was overdue. Now, the Deputy President has referred to the tougher credit action taken by Eskom, including the attachment of assets, but that will have severe effects on service delivery. There was an interministerial task team who looked at the issue of municipal debt to Eskom and other bulk service providers that expired at the end of the last parliament. That task now seems to fall to the Deputy President and his task team. My question is in respect of improving the payment rate of municipalities to Eskom, especially those municipalities that owe more than R1 billion in overdue debt. What successes achieved by this government can the Deputy President point to? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much. I think since the political task team has been appointed, we have made reasonable progress, not to our satisfaction, like I sound that is owed by public entities. By public entities in this case, I mean your municipalities, your government departments, money that is owed to Eskom. Only slightly above 4 billion rand has been paid since we're trying to push government departments to pay. But we are putting our mechanisms in place to really force departments to pay. We are going to be harder and harder as we move on. So there will be an improvement. The stance that is taken by Eskom in dealing with municipalities that are not paying, Eskom has got our support. We're supporting until such time municipalities must tell us why they are not paying and they must make arrangement to pay. We are serious about this. We are going to listen to the case tomorrow and the municipality must pay. This time I'm going there because now our people are suffering between Eskom and the municipality. Then people are suffering, but that tussle is necessary. Eskom must fight in order to get its money back. And it's going to happen to a number of municipalities that are not paying. We're serious, we want them to pay. And we are serious that government department that owe municipalities going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Mkalipi.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, the recent departed Auditor General constantly reported about the dire state of municipal governance in the country for the past few years. This ranges from poorly skilled managers who are there merely because of their proximity to the ruling party, to deliberate acts of corruption and mismanagement, to high vacancy rates, and the inability of many rural municipalities to raise their own revenues. Most of these Section 139 interventions, Deputy President, across the country have not worked. What is your view needs to be done to deal with the mess at a local government? What legislative and institutional changes do you think needs to be made to resolve crises of mismanagement in the municipalities? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much. I think all the issues hammered again and again by the Auditor General. The biggest issue in our local government space, though we must not classify all the municipalities as failures, there are some municipalities that are an epitome of success. They are doing very well. They are getting clean audit year in, year out. So there are those municipalities. What can we learn from those municipalities? What we can learn from those municipalities is that there's good leadership. We need good leadership and very stable leadership, politically and administratively. leadership that does not interfere in the day-to-day running of the municipality. Otherwise, they are going to cause chaos. Now, in a number of these municipalities that are not performing very well, you'll find that there is leadership problem, leadership instability, infighting amongst those that are supposed to lead. They call them the troika, that is this, and the chief whip. Because in that instance, in a municipality, you have got the executive arm, which is located within the same municipality, and we have got the legislative arm located in the same municipality, led by the speaker, the mayor leading the executive arm. They must coexist, and we have got the chief whip that is leading the majority party in that municipality. Now you find these three not really working together and causing instability. The second problem is the skills that are lacking there. In the main, financial management skills are lacking and they're not there. And you find that most of the people that are employed in these struggling municipalities are not relevantly qualified to be in those positions. That is why you have got financial problems, mismanagement of finances. Now, thirdly, municipalities are struggling because they are failing to collect revenue. They don't have the capacity. A municipality is like a shop. Municipalities is there to sell services. They're selling electricity, they're selling water. They can't sell these services at a loss, otherwise they'll collapse. Now, in our municipalities that are collapsing, the capacity to collect revenue is found to be wanting. Financial management is not there. But again, even the ability to increase the revenue space, leadership should be aware that it must create opportunities for business activities so that they can broaden their revenue space. So we don't have that kind of leadership. And the biggest challenge is stability in the leadership of an institution that we don't have. Yes, we agree mainly with the Auditor General, and probably as provinces, we did not insist on the remedial actions that must be taken and be enforced, and to ensure that we listen to the Auditor General. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question, and which is the last question, is asked by Honorable B. Swartz. Deputy President, this time we
Thank you very much.
We are on track.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Despite all the progressive towards the empowerment of women, women still remain at the receiving end of discrimination and violence and are at the margins of society with limited economic participation as a result of patriarchy. It is an indictment on our collective psyche as a nation that 6 decades after women marched to the Union building to demand their inalienable rights to freedom, their equality, and their dignity, we still have not substantially resolved these issues, including ending the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. Sadly, the year 2020 also marks a blot in our country's history as we contend with the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as what President has characterized as the second pandemic, the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide in our country. This comes on the back of another march to the Union building, held as recently as last year to raise fundamentally the same issues by women. Violence against women is a direct offense against the founding values of our Constitution, which envisages a democratic state founded on human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. Honorable Deputy Speaker, thus have a moral, all of us as honorable members, we have got a moral obligation and a constitutional responsibility to ensure that women and girl children are protected and are made to feel safe in their homes, at school, wherever they walk in the streets, in the workplaces, and even on social media platforms. Every one of us must take responsibility in their spaces to deal with the societal ills that are facing our country, gender-based violence and femicide being one of them. All of us must stand up and solve these challenges that we are experiencing as a country. We hear the cries of women and our children to have space to live and to fulfill their dreams and aspirations, and therefore as a society it is incumbent upon all of us to make that possible. We must give women and our children that space to live and that freedom. The violation of women goes against all that our democracy should be about, which guarantees the full emancipation of women. To this scourge, we cannot talk of moral regeneration without talking about concurrent role of in promoting. Honorable Deputy Speaker, in leading government response, the President launched the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide in April this year, which outlines targeted intervention and measures in terms of the following areas: urgently responding to victims and survivors of gender-based violence, broadening access to justice for survivors, change social norms and behavior, strengthening and promote accountability, and the creation of economic opportunities for women who are vulnerable. This plan is a pragmatic blueprint to stem the epidemic of gender-based violence and femicide. Also calls for the provision of victims accessible from all sectors of our society. To implement this national plan is required. To guide the implementation, Cabinet has approved the establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. This structure will greatly enhance coordination of multi-sectoral efforts in responding to this national challenge, and will also work closely with the South African National AIDS Council, as there is evidence of the relationship between acts of gender-based violence and HIV infections. As government, we continue to strengthen our criminal justice system to ensure that victims of gender-based violence and femicide are able to access justice and feel protected under the laws of this country. We're also determined to broaden access to justice for victims and survivors of gender-based violence and femicide. In this regard, the three pieces of legislation, namely the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Bill, and the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill, are currently being processed. This legislative intervention is in addition to a variety of interventions implemented by various government departments. They include the Tutuzela care centers that are established by the National Prosecuting Authority, which enable the provision of medical, legal, and psychological management support to survivors of sexual violence to prevent secondary victimization. In implementing the National Strategic Plan, government will continue to work closely with social partners, including the Moral Regeneration Movement, to facilitate community interventions that promote social connectedness and healing. We're encouraged by the work happening in KwaZulu-Natal, where they have integrated the Provincial Council on AIDS, Gender-Based Violence, Social Cohesion, Moral Regeneration Council, and align the fight against HIV and AIDS, as well as gender-based violence epidemic through nation building. The extended plenary of SANAC that was held on the 21st of November applauded this initiative by KZN. We also salute the various men's movements which have stepped forward to champion change. The recent Men's Parliament, which took place in this House, calling for institutionalizing a responsive men's movement to end gender-based violence in particular, and all forms of violence in general, heralds an important strides in our collective response in mobilizing the broader society towards building a cohesive, sound, South Africa that protects the human rights of women to life equality, and dignity. The Men's Parliament, which is an initiative by the men's sector of the SANAC in partnership with a range of stakeholders in civil society, private sector, and government, including Parliament, that was held on the 19th to the 28th of November 2020. It's a progressive step. With the country's adoption of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicides, Men's Parliament and Boys' Assemblies are crucial mechanisms to support the country's efforts to deal decisively with gender-based violence and femicides that is harming and violating women, mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and girl children. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable B. Swart.
Thank you, Honorable.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Deputy President.
Can I request 5 minutes of your time just to
that's allowed. Comfort
to pay my tax?
Yeah. Please do. The revenue services want it. Big time. Okay. Honorable
Yes.
members, take a 5 minutes comfort break.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Long live the child!
Long live the child!
Long live
the child!
Long live Titi Mabuza, long live! Long live Majordina, long live!
Long live!
Perhaps I could add.
Teacher, volunteer!
Speaker, nothing further in that regard. That was the end of the matter as far as she was concerned.
Long live the chair!
Long live Chisa, long live!
I'm not done. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I am back.
Order DP, Linda, order DP. Order DP.
DP, we are still in charge. Just give us one more minute. We'll allow you to speak. We do appreciate that. We do appreciate the taxes you have paid.
Yes.
Thank you, honorable members. Deputy President, please go ahead. Or was it? It was Deputy President. It was Ms. Swartz who was going to ask a supplementary question. Go ahead, ma'am. No, not you yet, Daddy. You are the last. Ms. Swartz.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, I welcome the call you have made for the entire society to take responsibility. And indeed, society is making an effort to address this pandemic called gender-based violence and femicide. Recently, you emphasized government's role in functioning through a coordinated manner known as the district development model. Political champions have each been allocated per district, and GBVF forms part of their work. In KZN, for example, the model of integration is working relatively well. Do you think that the district development model can be used as a model for implementing the moral regeneration movement and the gender-based violence and femicide program? Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Like I've said, from the meeting of SANAC, the extended plenary, we appreciated the intervention made by KZN. Now, they've done that at a provincial level by including all the stakeholders in the fight against HIV, in the fight against gender-based violence, and a number of programs in the same platform. But we were saying to the extended council, we must now move to the district level where we must create that platform. So the Council for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide that is going to be appointed must find its expression at the district level, and it must work together with the AIDS councils, with a number of programs at that level, so that we coordinate our collective response as a country to fighting all these social ills, including gender-based violence, moral regeneration. We are going to work with men, we are going to work with boys at the district level, so that collectively, all these stakeholders must work together to deal with these social ills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Sharif.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, with so much talk of morality and the ANC continuously attempting to claim the ethical and moral high ground, to no avail. In fact, it is absolutely tragic to watch as the ANC consistently shows its hypocrisy. GBV is not a game that the ANC can play around with. So please tell the Deputy President, why has your ANC reinstated an alleged perpetrator and PEC member in Mpumalanga who is alleged to have raped his 2 daughters? Noting the reinstatement has led to the relaxation of his bail conditions. Please explain to South African women and girls right now who are survivors of rape why your ANC allowed him back before the law takes its course while ignoring the pain of his victims.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I understand very well your concern about that decision, about the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC to readmit a member that has been, that is alleged to have been raped, 2 young children. Well, it's a matter that affects the ANC, and you're correct to raise your concern, but let's allow the ANC to deal with that matter. But all of us must be very sensitive about issues that affect women and children. Whatever your status in society, it's very important that we should respect women, we should respect girl children. Now, let's allow the ANC to deal with that matter. However, your concern is well placed. Thank you very much.
Honorable Dana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, with all due respect, that answer was not good enough. It is a great concern that a member of the ANC who is an office bearer in Mpumalanga has been reinstated as an MEC in that province, taking into account that the President asked ANC members who are accused of fraud and corruption to step down from their positions while being investigated publicly, mind you. Should that not be more so for office bearers of the ANC accused of GBV? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy President, thanks, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker and Honourable Member. Thank you for the same question, emphasizing on the same spot. And I understand really the concern coming from women. The decision by that PEC, it's a concern to everyone. But I'm saying without really deliberating on that decision, because it's a decision made by an ANC structure, which is a matter that the ANC must deal with. Can we allow space for the ANC to deal with that matter? But of course, as leaders in government, we are standing ready to fight the scourge of gender-based violence. Right from our political parties where we come from, we must lead by example. And we are calling for that all of us in those parties where we come from, we must lead by example. Therefore, that is why I'm saying your concern as members of this House about that decision of the ANC, it's well placed, and it's for the ANC to deal with that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Steve Swart.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And Deputy President, indeed, I also share the concerns of colleagues expressing discontent and outrage at that decision, and I do appreciate that you've given an indication that the party will deal with it, but I'm sure you agree that it is outrageous. However, Deputy President, as this has been a long day, allow me to put the last question. On this question put by my colleague Swart, S. Swart will put the follow-up question. Given that the breakdown of the family unit and subsequent economic abandonment of women and children increase the risk for exploitation and abuse, what specific intervention programs are envisaged by the moral regeneration program, and what role can and should religious communities play in this regard? Obviously, religious communities can play a key role in fighting gender-based violence. Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Deputy President.
Thank you very much. The moral regeneration movement, which is a movement of people that are seeking to restore our values, deal with unethical behaviors and tendencies within our society that has in that bigger movement. This movement must grow. It's going to include all those people that are also fighting, working hard to reverse the scourge of HIV and AIDS. We must be part, we must be together. Now, those people under the moral regeneration movement are now going to be joined by this council on gender-based violence that is constituted by labor, by civil society, by business, by government. All of us, we're now forming this big movement that is there to fight these social ills. Now, it is also the responsibility of government to try and restore the family as a basic unit of society. Remember, some of these children are growing in an environment that you cannot call it a family. Remember, some of these children don't have families. Some of these children are growing up in informal settlements. Some of these people don't have the desired services that must be provided to them. So it must be a very comprehensive approach towards fighting these societal ills that are bedeviling our society. So I welcome the other structures like your Council on Gender-Based Violence, like your Council on HIV and AIDS, like civil society, like business, all of us, let's stand up and fight gender-based violence. But above all, let us request families to try and restore family values. Let's request fathers to be fathers in their homes. Let's request mothers to be mothers in their home. Let us look after our children. Now, that is why we are talking directly to men. Men have organized themselves into this men's movement, trying to really sensitize men about the role that they must play in society. Now, after that, people felt, no, not men alone. We must also target young boys. So there are movements of young boys. They've been to legislatures, they've been given an opportunity to speak. So I see a society that is gradually standing up, getting ready to fight these pandemics that are confronting our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable members, allow me a moment to point out that earlier the reaction of Honorable Mautwe to my pointing out that she had exceeded her time, and her subsequent response to that constituted violation of Rule 92. I did say that, but specifically 11. The presiding officer's ruling on a point of order is final and binding and may not be challenged or questioned in the House. 12 says a member who is aggrieved by a presiding officer's ruling on a point of order may subsequently, in writing to the Speaker, request that the principle or subject matter of the ruling be referred to the Rules Committee. B, the Rules Committee may deal with the referral in terms of paragraph A as it deems fit, provided that it must confine itself to the principle underlying or subject matter of the ruling concerned and may not in any manner consider the specific ruling which is final and binding. Honorable members, some of you might be thinking this is a blinding glimpses of the obvious. Indeed, that is correct. But it is appropriate that we read it out, because sometimes an impression is given that we make rulings here arbitrarily, including the transparent, incorrect assertion, for example, that some members spoke for 5 minutes. It couldn't have happened. Not a single member spoke close to 1 minute in the first place. Here, no one exceeded their time that much in the first place. And this is why I thought it must be referred to, because it's not the first time. There are other members who have done the same thing, challenged the rulings, like the Speaker's ruling was challenged earlier yesterday, and so on. So we need to restate these rules in this manner with the hope that we will comply with them. So we appreciate members. We have now come to the end of the day, and this concludes our sitting. And enjoy whatever remains of the evening. Take care and stay safe. Honorable members. Thank you, Deputy President. Gone already.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy President.
Thank you.